British to silent. I now welcome Senator the Honourable Jane Hume, Minister for Superannuation, Financial Services and the Digital Economy. Representing the Minister for Communications, Urban Infrastructure, Cities and the Arts and the portfolio officers. Minister, do you have an opening statement?
Good morning, Chair and Committee. No, I don't.
Okay. Well, that is the first time I've ever been able to get through that without descending into giggles. I find that to be a very lengthy statement, but I wanted to now place on record my thanks to the Secretary for making the statement shorter so that I didn't collapse into fits of laughter at the beginning of these proceedings this morning. Now, with that out of the way, I'll call officers from Australia Post. Welcome to the Chair, Mr. Lucio Di Bartolomeo, and the Chief Executive, Mr. Graham. I note that you have an opening statement. You're happy to table that?
Yes, Chair.
Okay.
Happy to table that.
And we now go to open up to questions from my colleague, Senator Urquhart.
Thank you. So I might go to Mr. Graham and Mr. Bartolomeo if you want to jump in on these, but I do have some for you in a moment. Can I just start by asking a few questions about the Swiss-made electric vehicles which Australia Post uses to deliver the mail and parcels, the three-wheeler ones specifically. Yes. I'm talking about. How many incidents of tip-overs or rollovers have occurred in the last 12, 24 and 36 months?
Thank you, Senator. Yes, these are what we call the EDVs, they're electric vehicles. I don't have those exact numbers, but I can get those numbers for you and would take that on notice. Suffice to say that the rollout of those vehicles continues. They are sourced from Switzerland. We're also working with a local Australian manufacturer and we hope to deploy those vehicles in April. There have been some delays to those.
The Australian ones in April?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. There have been some delays of those due to COVID supply chains. The analysis shows that the EDVs are upwards of 65% safer than the motorbikes that we have. Yes. We are in a transition phase in terms of rolling those out, but they can take obviously additional parcels, additional mail, and the feedback overwhelmingly is positive in relation specifically to the safety and the telematics, which allows us to ensure that we understand the circumstances should there be a rollover or an accident. And in many cases, as we know, these are not the fault of the Australia Post team member, but now we've got video evidence to validate that. That evidence is also
okay,
used.
So you've done you've looked at the rollovers and determined that it's not the fault of the what are they called, drivers or riders?
Riders, yeah. Riders,
okay.
yeah.
But it's actually something to do with the way this particular machine is made. Is that, as I understand?
No, I mean, a lot of the issues are on people getting used to these devices, these machines, because they are different. Okay. We continually work with the manufacturer now on version 2 of the vehicle to ensure that we continue to build in new safety features. Yeah. The vehicles themselves are much more stable than an average motorbike, but I think we are in that learning curve of people coming off motorbikes into these EDVs and understanding how to use them. But with the telematics, it allows us to get that information and then we'll look at whether it's a design issue we can improve, whether it is a training issue for the rider or indeed some other circumstances.
So you said you were moving from the Swiss-made ones to Australian-made ones. Is that in relation to the rollovers, or is it?
No, not at all. No, it's really trying to back Australian manufacturing where we can, and we have a trial with this manufacturer called Stealth. They've had some delays, as I say, but they approached us, and we will put a number of vehicles into operation to test them.
And that's mid-year, did you say?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So just in relation to the information that you're taking on notice, can you also provide on notice a breakdown of the incidents by state and territory, including how many incidents have resulted in lost time injury, if there have been any in that category?
Yes, certainly, Senator. We'll have that detail.
And in terms of any incidents, has Comcare been notified of all or any of the incidents?
Where Comcare is required to be notified by the statutes and the regulations, we notify them. We have a very comprehensive safety injury management process that starts with the local depot manager and escalates right the way through to myself.
So in terms of that then, has the regulator formally conducted their own investigation into any of the incidents?
I would have to validate that, Senator, and come back to you. As far as I'm aware, none of the incidents resulted in serious injury, but obviously any injury is one too many. And,
but Australia Post has actually undertaken
full investigations.
Full investigations into each incident.
Absolutely, yes.
And who currently conducts those investigations?
They are conducted by our safety team.
Yep.
And given that we've had these new vehicles, we've also got independent third-party validation, both from the manufacturer as well as external safety experts to ensure that we've got a full picture of cause and effect. And
who's the third-party investigator?
I'd have to get that for you. There's a number of agencies we use to validate.
Okay, thank you. And I think you said earlier that almost every case the rider error was not identified as a cause. Is that correct?
No, I'd have to look at the data itself. Okay. I mean, I think there are a combination of issues, environmental issues, other traffic, driver training, the range of issues, and they would be covered by the reports.
Take that on notice. That
Certainly,
would be
Senator,
helpful.
we will do.
And are you aware of any design issues around the centre of gravity specification in the Swiss-made EDVs?
It is one of the things that we look at, obviously, as far as the design is concerned. And I say version 2 has...
And have you identified any issues around
No
that?
major issues. Okay. What we've found is that depending on the driver, they have a slightly different view as to what the issue may be.
Yep.
And it's a bit like Holden and Ford. People have got very fixed views.
What about, have you received technical advice about the centre of gravity maybe being too high?
No, we haven't, not that I'm aware, but again, I will validate that that's the case. And as I say, these bikes are new to the market, new to Australia, and we're in that initial rollout phase and taking
And can you
feedback.
confirm that Australia Post is now using New Zealand-based independent medical examiners to assess workers' compensation claims?
I'm not aware of that. I can take that on notice. We have a range of providers that do that.
Would it be appropriate to use
Okay.
New Zealand?
I would have to understand the circumstances under why, if indeed they were chosen.
If you could take that on notice, that would be great. So I just want to go now to Mr. Di Bartolomeo. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Oh, lovely, thank you. And you can hear, I can hear you, so that's good. So I just want to draw your attention to paragraphs 2.1 and 2.3 of the Senate inquiry into Australia Post, and it reads as follows. The Senate Environment, Communications and References Committee wishes to express its respect and support for the important institution of Australia Post. It is one of the country's oldest enduring entities that provides a vital public service to millions of Australians and countless businesses. The committee also acknowledges the tens of thousands of hard-working employees, licensees and contractors that ensure its ongoing operations. The committee nevertheless has significant concerns about Australia Post's engagement with this inquiry, each of which will be discussed in turn. Respect for the Senate's authority and processes, potential interference with individuals, including Australia Post employees and contractors wishing to make submissions or give evidence to the inquiry, and allegations of false or misleading evidence provided by the Chair of Australia Post to this inquiry and to the committee. So I particularly draw your attention to the first of those 3 points. Can I ask you why you rejected the first 2 requests from this committee to appear today?
Senator, I rejected it on the basis of commitments that I have. My understanding of the questions that were to be raised. We have Paul Graham, who is not only our CEO but a board member, able to answer questions of the board.
Okay, so on what basis did you refuse to request to attend a Senate oversight hearing when such attendance presented no real conflicts in your diary? So there weren't board meetings, there weren't other important issues.
Sorry, Senator, are you referring to this meeting today?
That and other Senate oversight hearings. This meeting
I've
today.
attended.
Sorry, this meeting
I've
today is
attended.
a Senate oversight. Well, this is estimates.
Yes. And other schedules, other committees in my schedule, they weren't board meetings, correct? And I believe that Paul Graham, our CEO and board member, was able to address the issues, any issues this could.
Okay, well, with all due respect to Mr Graham, he's just taken a significant number of questions on notice. So I guess that's the point that I want to make about why it was important for you to be here today. So can you explain what you understand your role in the system of parliamentary accountability to be?
Australia Post and the agency is responsible to this committee and the oversight committee, and as chair of the board, I take that responsibility with very serious concern.
Minister, do you consider bonuses paid out by the Australia Post Board to be taxpayers' money?
I remember this question was asked of me at the last estimates, Senator Urquhart, although I don't believe it was by you. I think it may have been by Senator Sheldon. And at that point in time, and I would refer you back to my answer then, but we know that Australia Post is a government business entity and that decisions about bonuses are entirely their
I
business.
understand the decisions,
However, that
Minister.
said, Senator Urquhart, and I haven't finished my answer, that Senator Birmingham, Mr Birmingham, has made it very clear that Australia Post and indeed all other government business entities should understand that while they are commercial entities, they are also taxpayer-funded commercial entities and owned by the taxpayer, and should establish their remuneration structures with that foremost in their minds.
Okay. I know you have lots more questions, so I'm
I
going to
do.
rotate now and come
Okay.
back to you.
Yep.
Senator Davey, I think you wanted...
I did. Thank you
That's
very
all right.
much. Thank you for appearing today. I have a few questions about your agreements with licensed post offices or post office agencies. Specifically, can you explain the licence arrangements with licensees, the arrangements between a licensed postal office, the mail service payment arrangements? Are they consistent across all agencies, or are there new contracts now being negotiated between franchisees or licensed agents?
We have, as you say, the licensed post office network is a significant partner with Australia Post. These are small businesses operating in all areas, but particularly regional and rural Australia. We have very mature agreements in place with the licensees that are subject to annual review. We've just completed that review with the licensees, and will, as a result of that, be paying an additional $16 million in 2022 to the licensees. This is on top of the $2.34 billion that we have paid to them over the last 5 years. There's a range of fees that get paid in relation to the services they provide. It depends on the range of services that licensed post office does provide, whether it provides full range of mail services or partial range, or it provides full banking service or a partial range. So they do vary, but there's a very detailed agreement in place to reflect fair payment and reward for the work that they do. And as I say, they're a critical part of our network going forward, and we have a very strong partnership with them, and they form a big part of our future strategy.
So can you explain specifically the mail service payment and what that is made for, what services that is made for?
Again, Senator, it is for a range of services. It depends on individual licensed post office. This could be for putting mail into a licensed post box, could be for receiving mail, a whole bunch of different things, taking mail over the counter, will it be Parcel Express or Postal Express. So it would depend on the licensed post office, and again the fees reflect the work that they do, and we have very detailed discussions with the LPOs, ensuring that we reflect in the payments the time and effort that they put into providing these services, but they do vary significantly.
Has there been occasion over the last 12 months where you've had to back pay mail service payments to licensees or agents?
I don't think back pay is the right term. There have been occasions where there has been a change of circumstances or a change of what was previously the way that mail or other things were handled, and then we have been asked to review that by the licensee. We have reviewed that, and then we have agreed a new payment for that change in circumstances. Obviously, during the COVID situation, a lot has changed in our day-to-day operations, and we are reflective of the fact that when circumstances change, it may require additional work from that licensee, or may require less work, and if it's additional work, and we will discuss that, and then we'll reflect that in providing a payment in lieu of that work.
And what sort of a time lag is there for a review? If a licensee believes they've had a change of circumstances, what's the time lag between when you when they first alert you and you might have a review and in some cases find that there has been an underpayment?
Look, we've tried to make that payment as soon as possible, as soon as it's been validated that indeed there is a payment due. Again, it will depend on the complexity and the nature of the analysis that needs to be done, but our effort is to pay that as soon as it's been agreed.
And are all licensees fully aware of all the range of fees that they can potentially be eligible for? And is there a process in place for Australia Post to actively ensure that all licensees are claiming all of the fees they're eligible for, or may there be occurrences where some licensees are not being paid because they're unaware of it?
It is a good question, Senator. We provide detailed training, both in person and online, for all our licensees. We do have a very diversified product range. We are providing financial services to 80 financial institutions. We provide phone services. We provide insurance services. So it is a complex range of products. We have licensees who are really engaged in understanding exactly what products are and what the fees associated with them are, but we have it all based on our website, on our online training, and if there's any occasion where a licensee is unfamiliar, we're happy to provide information. Our goal is to ensure that we pay them for everything that they do, because if they're losing revenue, then there may be the fact that Australia Post itself is losing revenue if we're not identifying that we're charging someone for that service.
It has been put to me that there are bonuses available for Australia Post network managers if they reduce licensee payments. What would your response be to that allegation?
My response would be that I am not aware of that, and it would not be in keeping with the spirit of the culture that we want to push at Australia Post.
Just moving on to another topic, and I'll be brief and hand over the call. Australia Post is in the service of delivery. We saw during COVID, for legitimate reasons, some of the delivery times pushed out, and that's all understandable. Does Australia Post deliver their mail to all their licensees, or are there occasions where licensees must pick up mail from an Australia Post depot?
In the vast majority of cases, we deliver mail. There are occasions where during COVID it has been necessary because there simply was not someone to deliver that mail in that area, and we've worked with the licensee on arrangements to come and pick that up. But in the vast majority of cases, particularly in metropolitan and regional areas, we deliver the mail to the postal operator. In some remote communities, it's a bit of a hybrid, to be honest, but certainly during COVID, there were some rare occasions, certainly in Victoria, where we had mail centres who had 80% absenteeism, and we would make arrangements for that mail to be picked up by the licensee if that was indeed available to them, and they would get paid for that service.
They get compensated. Is there a backup plan in place for if on those occasions, or in the regional remote areas where there is a hybrid model, if something goes wrong, say the licensee's van breaks down or something, to ensure the post still gets they're on time?
Yes, look, we always have a plan B and a plan C, and obviously during COVID, those plans were all brought into play. Remote areas or areas like the Cocos Islands, for example, which we service, but aircraft services went down to one a week. So we had to put on additional capacity to make sure that mail and other essential parcels got delivered. It has been and continues to be, unfortunately, a very fluid situation. But I think overall, if you look at the context of the circumstances where we've had 28,000 of our team members impacted and not been able to do their normal job due to COVID, I think the overall feedback from the community, as you say, has been one of understanding. However, we take any service failure seriously, and I think overall, in the circumstances with record volumes, we've been able to achieve a fairly consistent and reliable level of service.
You one more?
Just one more. I explained earlier the network managers who oversee licensee arrangements. Is there a process in place for Australia Post to evaluate network managers' performance? And is there a process in place where licensees have an issue where they can put in a complaint and ensure that it's reviewed? And do you report back to the licensees about that review process and any actions that have been taken?
So we just give me 1 minute. I'll just after this answer, I'll talk to the committee. Yep. Do you want to answer that question?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Thank you. We have a very detailed review process on performance based on feedback from the licensees. We have regular meetings with the licensees where they have a forum where they can air any grievances or any issues. Obviously, if it's of a very serious nature, we also have whistleblower and fulfil all our obligations under the normal whistleblower regimes. I think we've got a good, robust relationship with the licensees. It's a large, complex network with many moving parts, and we are not perfect, but when a issue is raised to us, if it's a systemic issue in terms of our process, we will look to fix the process. Where it's a misunderstanding, we'll look to clarify that. But it is an open, transparent relationship, and I encourage, as I've met with many licensees, for them to raise their challenges and issues. We have a formal process for doing that, as well as, I say, a formal process for reviewing the performance of the area and regional managers.
Rotating. Okay, thank you very much. I just wanted to get the committee's agreement that we're going to permit photography in the room today. I'm happy to provide that authority for the day. In case anyone else wants. Everyone's okay with that? Okay. Senator Urquhart.
Thanks very much. So I just now want to go through, and I'll probably direct these to the Minister, Mr Di Bartholomew, given that you weren't the CEO at the time, Mr Graham. So in question on notice 4293, that provided us a breakdown of how much in bonuses were paid out across multi-base salary bands, including the number of bonus recipients that were in that band. In 2021, the data in that question on notice indicates that Australia Post executives receiving a base salary of between $300,000 and $400,000 a year received an average taxpayer-funded bonus of $168,000. So this band, for example, saw an increase of 22% in average bonuses compared to the year prior. So, Minister, can I first ask you, does the government consider this to be appropriate?
Well, thank you, Senator, and that's not dissimilar to your last question, and I will repeat the fact that remuneration paid by Australia Post is entirely a matter for the board. Australia Post operates, as we know, in a very competitive commercial environment, and it does have to attract and retain staff as it sees fit. However, Australia Post should and must also meet government and public expectations about appropriate compensation.
What are those expectations?
So I take it
I think
that you
that Minister
accept
Birmingham
that
has
those
made that
are
very clear.
Expectations. Mr Bartholomew, can I ask you the same question? Do you consider that on a salary of between $300,000 and $400,000, that executives receiving that amount received an average taxpayer-funded bonus of $168,000, a 22% increase in the average bonuses compared to the year prior? Do you consider that to be appropriate?
Thank you, Senator, for the opportunity to shed some light on this subject. I guess the first point I'd like to make is I don't see those as bonuses. short-term incentive. They are part and parcel of the contractual arrangements that Australia Post has with all of those executives that have a short-term incentive. It's made up of a fixed amount of remuneration plus an extra amount that is within their salary band that is risk subject to performance. So it's not a bonus, it's just that some of their recognised remuneration is only available to them on performance against set criteria.
We're having a bit of a problem with your connection.
Okay, I can actually work out what he's saying, I think.
I'm wondering if it might be best we try switching off your video to see if that might aid the connection. Or try again.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I do occasionally have problems with my internet. Is that any better?
Yes, much better. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'll repeat very briefly what I said. Look, it's a great opportunity for me to try and clarify this notion of incentive payments. We certainly don't see them as bonuses at all. With our senior executives, we have contractual arrangements around the remuneration that provides two components of remuneration. One is fixed and payable irrespective of performance, and another part is payable subject to performance, identifiable, targeted and measurable performance outcomes. And clearly, performance outcome from year to year may well see different payments being made. They're not increases in pay, they're not increases in bonuses, they're just simply getting more of what was at risk for them rather than less that obviously occurred the previous year. Those packages are set on the basis of what is considered in the marketplace for those sort of positions. And it starts off with the Group General Manager for Australia Post. In this case, he has a fixed and an STI that was established by the Independent Remuneration Tribunal, Chair. And that broad structure applies to a number of executives down to some reasonably junior levels.
So, Mr Bartholomew, the rate of inflation for the 12 months of the 2021 financial year was 3.8%, according to the Bureau of Statistics. So what we're looking at here are these bonuses or remuneration, whatever you want to call them, that are 6 times the pace of inflation.
Senator, thank you for the question. It's not an inflationary increase. In fact, their package did not increase at all that year. What increased was the performance against those specific targets. So their performance that particular year was better than the performance the prior year. And therefore the increase in how much they were able to earn of what was available to them.
So
it wasn't an increase in their remuneration package per se.
Okay, so Minister, I'll come back to you. On the 13th of August 2021, the Sydney Morning Herald published a story with a headline, "Public Sector Bonuses to be Dramatically Slashed in Federal Government Edict." So what happened to Australia Post? Doesn't it just make a mockery of the supposed edict?
Well, I think that, again, Senator Birmingham, Minister Birmingham made it very clear what the government's expectations are. The government expects all entities, including government business enterprises, to act ethically and to adhere to high standards regarding the expenditure of money, as the public also rightly expects.
Okay, so was the Minister aware as to the growth in executive bonuses across every highly remunerated base salary band in Australia Post?
Australia Post accounts accounts are transparent, so I would assume that
the Minister was aware.
Would be able to have full visibility on Australia Post's accounts, as would all the rest of the Senate, the rest of the Parliament.
Mr Bartholomew, by what average amount did the base salaries of the executives in the 300,000 to 400,000 increase from financial year 2020 to financial year 2021?
I believe that year the increase was 0.
Right. So they didn't get any increase in their base salary?
No.
Okay.
No,
Mr.
as per my previous-
Sorry.
Beg your
Sorry,
pardon?
what about the 400,000 to 500,000 group?
Well, their base salary did not increase. The STI that was available, the maximum STI that was available did not increase. What occurred was that the performance was deemed superior to the prior year and they earned more of the proportion that was available for them to earn. But it wasn't a base salary increase, either to the base salary, the fixed amount, or the at-risk amount. They just simply earned more of that available to them.
Okay, so
Better
what you've
performance.
just, I'm sorry, but what you've just gone through with us about bonuses versus incentives versus whatever you call it, from my point of view is just spin. If you have a look at your annual report, the message from the Chair on page 74 of that report says, and I quote, Australia Post acknowledges that the government recently released performance bonus guidance principles governing performance bonus use in Commonwealth entities and companies to apply from financial year 2022. So you've used the term bonus to refer to the STI payments?
Yes, I did.
So perhaps, Chair, could
Has the
I assist with that question? My name's Nick McDonald. I'm General Counsel and Corporate Secretary of Australia Post. So I'm mindful that your questions, Senator, have related to remuneration and incentives in financial year 21. The APSC guidance that was published, as you referred to, on the 13th of August applies from financial year 22. The statement that the Chair made in the annual report that you referred to does refer to performance bonus guidance. The Chair there is referring to the title of that guidance, but as he made the point earlier, we have an incentive program which is performance-based and involves at-risk remuneration, and he made the distinction there from bonuses.
Right, okay. Mr Bartholomew, has the board conducted any independent process to assure itself that these bonuses paid for financial year 2021 constitute value for money? I mean, do you benchmark against other industries?
Thank you for your question, Senator. Yes, we certainly do. We benchmark against, we have independent benchmarking occurring against other industries, and we set remuneration levels to attract the quality people that we believe in our organisation, and our packages, generally speaking, lie in the bottom and second bottom quartile, generally below medium, and certainly nowhere near above anyone's above medium. So we believe we are placing remuneration packages that are good enough to attract the people we want, but we're certainly not in the field.
Okay, if you could maybe, I'm happy for you to take it on notice, but can you provide us with the industries that you benchmark against? And I just want to, I mean, my understanding is that the government thinks these are bonuses, but the Chair doesn't. So, Minister, do you consider these to be bonuses?
I'm going to rotate the call now. So,
Well,
do you want to quickly answer that question? Then I'm going to rotate and come back to you.
Yep.
It's not up to me, it's entirely up to Australia Post as to
Yep.
whether they refer to them as
Okay.
bonuses or not. But I can say, for the record, that the government expects Australia Post will follow the principles that are outlined in the Morton Review from 2021-22 onwards.
Okay, I'm going to hand the call now to Senator Mirabella. I just wanted to check. Do you have to be somewhere in time? No. Okay, well, could you come to your next rotation? And I've got to come to you as well. So, Senator Mirabella.
Thank you, Chair. Mr Graham, my first couple of questions relate to the forthcoming federal election. I think we're expecting probably a record high participation in postal voting. Can you give me a general description of what, if anything, you're doing to get ahead of that?
Thank you, Senator. Yes, we are aware that there will potentially be a far higher level of postal votes. Australia Post has a long record of providing, I think, exemplary service during election campaigns. We recently just provided services to the recent by-elections in both Victoria and New South Wales, and had a good trial run, shall we say, on the census last year, which was a very extensive and very complex program. We have the South Australian elections coming up shortly as well. We have a very skilled and experienced team who've been involved in managing Australia Post and its interface with the Australian Electoral Commission for many, many years. I think the COVID situation where we've been able to be very agile and react very quickly has just further strengthened the muscle that we have in that respect. We will have a command centre set up. We have had many meetings and dialogues with the Australian Electoral Commission and believe that we have all the necessary tools in place to be able to provide the level of service and competency that the Australian taxpayer requires.
Okay, well, just as a matter of interest, if you've been having discussions with the AEC, collectively or individually, have you put a number on jump, what you anticipate in postal voting?
No, that's not our prerogative. Our prerogative is to obviously provide a service to make sure that any postal vote that is placed is returned to the AEC for counting. So we're not aware of any numbers that may be in their head.
All right. Do you provide? Do you have to put on extra staff, or do you provide any extra training for staff?
We have a very thorough process where we feel that there may be a need to bring on additional people. We will bring those people on. As I said in response to some other questions, the COVID situation has brought into context some of the challenges in regional and remote Australia. So we will have additional backup services in place there in relation to the election, because getting to some of those places in a normal sense is challenging during COVID with restrictions, even more so. We have significant training programs in place for people dealing with the electoral process and how they manage votes, both at our post offices when it comes to postal votes coming in there, as well as through our mail and sorting centres.
Okay. I'd like to just jump to another topic now. I've read your tabled report, and this is not a criticism, but I note there's no mention there specifically of regional services, and I have a particular interest in regional services. So I'm going to ask you an open-ended question here. What are you forecasting, say, over the next 10 years in the kind of services, the increase or decrease in services to rural and regional Australia?
Thank you, Senator, for your question. I think Australia Post is uniquely placed, more so than many other organisations in the country, to continue providing essential services to regional and remote Australia. We do that on a daily basis. We touch every single postcode in Australia with our parcel and our letter business. We've also, over recent years, continued to expand our range of services, particularly banking services. We now cater to 80 banks and financial institutions throughout our postal network. We are looking at the growth in regional areas, whether that be due to COVID and people moving to country areas, and also the dynamics of remote Australia. And our goal is to continue to provide a broader range of services based on the demands that our customers are making. So in our licensed post offices, the more services they can provide, the better revenue stream and profit stream for them. And we are seeing in many of these regional areas that we are the last service-based organisation standing in terms of managing cash, managing banking or financial services, providing access to sign up for a mobile phone, whether it be insurance services, parcel services, or obviously our traditional mail services. So we see continued investment to expand our presence and the range of services that are demanded by rural and regional Australia. We'll be rolling out our first, what we call Community Hub at Post concept, which is an expanded footprint where we will look to provide dedicated banking lines, more space for parcels, because obviously that continues to increase, but also look at potentially the facility of having video conferencing rooms where someone can come in, if it's a mobile banker, because they no longer have a bank, they can book that to have a consultation with their clients, or indeed in the case where someone may want to come in and book a specialist's video conference with their specialist in Melbourne or Sydney. So we see those areas as opportunities for growth. We're not shrinking, and part of our strategy that we will be recalibrating in a post-COVID environment, because obviously COVID has taught us a lot about changes in our customers' buying behaviour and also what they are looking for. And we see and are proud to be a company that actually views regional and remote Australia as a strong part of our business going forward, and one that we look to invest in.
Okay. You've actually anticipated a couple more questions, but just quickly, with the banking,
yes,
obviously banking's important. Regionally, the majors are disappearing. So I'm pleased to hear that's a priority. You've got arrangements, you said, with I think 80 banks, financial
Correct.
institutions. Are there any missing? Of significance.
ANZ is missing, and we continue to have a dialogue with them. We were happy to announce recently a 10-year agreement with Commonwealth Bank and National Australia Bank, and we're in final discussions with Westpac about extending their relationship. But ANZ was an exception at the beginning of that process, and we were in dialogue with them around them potentially coming into that. We say, as you state, Senator, we have now 80 banks and financial institutions, and that number continues to grow.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Senator Mirabella. Back to you, Senator Urquhart.
Thanks very much. Mr. De Bartholomew, which member of the board which members of the board are on the Remuneration Committee?
Thank you, Senator. All members of the board are on the Remuneration Committee.
Okay, thank you. Now, I just want to look at a different... Oh, sorry.
Sorry, Senator, to interrupt. I just wanted to clarify one point. It's all non-executive directors are members of that committee. The managing director is not a member of the Nomination and Remuneration Committee.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. I just want to look at a different band. So Australia Post executives and senior personnel on a base salary of between $200,000 and $300,000 received a cash bonus of $74,000 in late 2021. Yet when we look at the equivalent executive base salary band in NBN Co, the average bonus for 2021 was $21,400. So, Minister, maybe I could ask you, why are Australia Post executives receiving taxpayer-funded bonuses which are on average over 3 times higher than bonuses paid to an equivalent executive within NBN Co?
Well, again, Senator Urquhart, I can only say that decisions about remuneration structures and bonuses and short-term incentive payments are matters for the NBN board, and they are matters for the Australia Post board, and they are best directed to them.
Senator, if I may talk about the context of remuneration, please, if I may. NBN, the base salaries are far higher than those at Australia Post, so it's not an apples for apples comparison, but I take your point. I think in the context of remuneration, I think as the Chair, Lucio, mentioned, this is a contract. It's a contract that commits a lump sum of money, partially of which that is at risk based on performance. So whether you call it a bonus, an incentive, it is a contractual obligation, and people signing up for that contract understand that a high portion of that total sum is at risk and based purely on performance. In the context of Australia Post, we fully respect our role as a GBE. However, we do run the largest retail network in Australia with 4,500 branches. We do run the largest mail service in the country. We do run the largest e-commerce parcel service in the country. We are providing services to 80 banks and financial institutions. We are an international parcel provider. We also provide insurance services, telephone services.
I'm sorry to cut you off. I do know all that. We are running out of time. So okay. I just want to go back to the Minister. And so, Minister, I mean, these are bonuses. Do you accept that they're bonuses paid to people over and above their salary?
Well, I think that was very well explained then by Mr. Graham, that remuneration...
I'm asking you as the Minister whether you believe these are bonuses as part of his salary.
What my opinion is on this, Senator Urquhart, is entirely irrelevant.
It's the government. It's taxpayers' money, Senator.
It's entirely irrelevant because the decision on how to remunerate staff and executives is a decision for the Australia Post board.
Minister, this is taxpayers' money.
And the government has made it very clear, whether it be in the Morton Review or whether it be in statements by Minister Birmingham, that the government expects Australia Post will follow those principles in the Morton Review.
Yes, you've said that 3 times.
And you've asked the same question 4 times.
Well, no, I haven't.
I think order. I'm going to make the point, it is getting a bit repetitive, so if you want to ask questions to the Minister, that's
Minister,
fine. Sorry, order. I'm making a rare statement here. I think if you are going to ask questions to the Minister, that's fine, but it'd be good if you allow the Minister to answer the question. Because the whole point of this session is for senators to ask questions primarily to the departments and the agencies, perhaps get a clarification from a minister and then hear the answer.
We can actually ask the Minister questions as well.
Yeah, but the whole point is to hear the answer.
Yeah. Okay, Minister, what independent oversight outside the board exists in terms of examining whether the performance targets to which Australia Post executive bonuses are linked are appropriately aspirational?
That is the role of the board.
The role of the board. Has the Minister ever commissioned an independent assessment on this?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. So in 2021, only 152 out of 32,755, so that's 0.4% frontline Australia Post workers on an award salary received a bonus, compared to 33,014 out of 33,337, so 99% in 2020. Is that fair?
I'm sorry, is that a question for me or is that a question for Australia Post?
It's a question for you, Minister.
I think it's actually a more appropriate question for Australia Post, and fairness is not an issue upon which I should comment.
Right, can I just go to Mr Graham in relation to what role does Australia Post play in terms of direct logistical support for vaccine and rapid antigen test deliveries?
Thank you, Senator, for your question. Yes, we have been approached by various state and agencies, particularly state agencies, to provide logistic support to roll out rapid antigen testing kits to schools, to other public health agencies, and we provide that through our normal network, and it has been very successful, I believe, and we will continue to provide a range of services to both federal and state governments in relation to the pandemic.
Okay, so has the Commonwealth Government made any formal requests of Australia Post support in terms of the national COVID effort?
We've had, like I guess many large logistics companies, we've played a role in moving what could be regarded as COVID-related products, whether that be PPE or rapid antigen tests, on behalf of government agencies and on behalf of private companies or indeed customers of ours who are looking to have these made available to their team members across Australia.
So can you very briefly just describe, where appropriate, what your role is and how that's actually coordinated?
Our role is as a service provider, the same as any other service provider, using our wide national network to ensure that products that are given to us are delivered safely and in a timely manner to people who need them.
And what patterns have Australia Post seen in its parcel volume since the Christmas peak?
We saw during the Christmas peak, December was the busiest month on record for Australia Post. We moved 58 million parcels, which is extraordinary when you place this against the context of the Australian population. Like many people, we expected that the pandemic would start to ease off, but Omicron obviously reared its ugly head, and that we have seen a continued increase in parcel volumes over and above what we anticipated, because people are still staying at home, people are fearful of going out. We are seeing that starting to ease. However, it is higher than what we anticipated, and that continues to place a great strain upon our network and our team members.
Okay. Now that you've had a few months in your role as CEO, what are the key observations that you've made to date about the operation and functioning of the network and the investments and changes that you might be seeking to make?
Thank you, Senator. Yes, it's been month 4 now. I've been incredibly impressed by the commitment and dedication of the Australia Post team across the board. It is a complex business. We are competing with many global players who've got very deep pockets, both in terms of those that have logistics networks as well as those that are investing significantly in digital and data, and that is something that we need to be concerned about. I have 2 clear responsibilities as a CEO. The first one is to keep people safe. The second one is to ensure that Australia Post remains a sustainable economic organisation in the years ahead. We are in an incredibly competitive environment. Omicron and COVID has accelerated e-commerce significantly. We have seen significant sums of money poured into the Australian economy by e-commerce players to try and capture market share, and we compete against many of these players. So we have investments that we need to continue to make. We have a war on talent, as has been discussed this morning. We are competing against the open market for digital. We have one of the largest used digital applications in the country in our parcel tracking app. We need smart people to be able to manage and continue to upgrade that in response to our customers' needs. We need to continue investing in our regional network because we see that, frankly, as a point of competitive advantage. We are in places where no one else is. The Australian taxpayer has spent billions of dollars over many years helping build the network that we have today. What we can't afford to do is to open that network and give that network away. We have seen in other postal operators globally where they have not invested in the right talent or not invested in their business, that they are now in a loss-making situation. The most glaring example would be the United States Postal Service that did not invest in people, did not invest in systems or process, and last year posted an $8 billion US dollar loss. We do not want to be in that situation. We should not be in that situation, but it will require us to continue hiring and attracting the right talent, making sensible investments that are executed by smart people in our network, in our retail footprint, and continue to look at how we broaden our range of services. Because particularly in regional and remote Australia, we are going to be there, and we're going to be there today and tomorrow and on into the future. And we're very proud of that responsibility. But the world has changed in COVID. E-commerce has changed significantly. That represents 80% of our business, and we need to make sure that we're keeping pace with what our customers want, what our communities expect of us, and at the same time to be competitive both from a pricing perspective as well as from a service perspective.
Thanks, Mr Graham. We're very conscious of time. I'll put the rest on notice, but if you can provide a little bit more information about broadening your services on notice, that would be good. And I've got a few other questions, but I'm happy to put them on notice.
Okay, appreciate that. Just because we are over now, so just get an indication of time from you two. Okay, you happy to? Okay, you happy for Senator Canavan to kick off? Senator Hanson?
I'll be very brief. Thank you,
Senator
Chair, and congratulations, Mr Graham, on your appointment. I'm particularly interested in your relationship with licensed post officers. I realise the financial stresses you are under, but I'm sure you appreciate they have struggled as well in recent years, and your predecessor, Ms Holgate, was doing some very good work, in my view, with the LPOs. Can I ask for an update on the Bank at Post deal? I believe at the last estimates you mentioned Westpac had extended for a year till the end of this year, and you're still in discussions with ANZ. What's the latest on those discussions?
Yes, we have announced recently a 10-year extension with both National Australia Bank and Commonwealth Bank, which is terrific news, provides surety to us as well as our licensed post officers who rely on that income. We are in discussions with Westpac to extend their current agreement, and we are in discussions with ANZ to enter into an agreement. Those discussions are ongoing, but we have expanded our range of customers that we can now provide services for to over 80 banking and financial institutions, and based on the number of inquiries we get, that will continue to expand and is, as you say, a very beneficial service offering both for the communities in which we operate, but is particularly for the LPOs.
Well, that's great news. Thank you very much for that. Just more generally on seeking to find third-party revenue sources, at the last estimates I asked questions about the Australia Post's deal with 7-Eleven, and I think you some sort of delivery boxes or some such there. Is there any attempts to seek to try to find more third-party revenue sources for licensed post offices and your own post offices through, for example, partnering with delivery firms like Toll or others, so that the online ordering doesn't just, you're not just restricted to the Australia Post network to provide revenue for LPOs? Yeah,
there's no intention to partner with any other delivery service. We are the largest delivery network in Australia. We don't need any support in doing that. We do provide an open network, so the companies that are in competition to us can place their parcels within our network for a fee. But as I mentioned just recently, the Australian taxpayers spent billions of dollars building the Australia Post network. It is a distinct competitive advantage for us. We believe we offer a very reliable and excellent level of service at competitive rates, and we want to maintain that competitive service. We continue to look at all areas of opportunity for our LPOs, whether it be in the retail space, whether it be in providing additional services like telephone services or insurance services, and we take their feedback. We have a working group with them to continue to look at what other things we can do, and within that physical footprint we have the opportunity to do more, and look forward to doing that.
Well, perhaps we can take this up another time, but I'm hearing feedback that notwithstanding yes, you're right, the Australia Post extensive network, the restrictions on not being able to offer delivery to other entities is restricting the market share or services offered by post offices themselves. And you correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the agreements you have with LPOs restrict them from entering into any third-party agreements in that sense. Maybe on notice, could you take from me what is Australia's post market share of online delivery packages and how that has been tracking for the past 5 years?
Yes, happy to take that on those.
Thank you.
No.
And final on this.
Broken down into kind of regional versus metro?
I believe we can. I'll take it
happy
on
for them
notice,
to-
but I believe we can.
I think
yes,
that would
Senator.
be helpful.
Okay, thank you. Just last question from me. Board representation, always raised the issue of having LPOs on the board. Is that something you've had discussions with yet, Mr Graham, or considered?
Not a matter for management, Senator. It'd be a matter for...
I'm sure you could provide advice to the board on it, but if you so choose.
It's not an area that I
Okay.
would look to provide advice on.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Senator Canavan. Senator Hanson-Young.
Thank you. Just quickly on the matter of bonuses, and for the record, I think lots of Australians, particularly those who work in aged care facilities right now, would just be gobsmacked that somebody on $200,000 or $300,000 a year is getting a bonus of $170,000. I think that is out of touch. I think it proves that nothing's really been learnt from the last 2 years, and I'd urge the Australia Board to think a bit more clearly about the message they're sending, particularly when frontline workers are not the ones who are getting the bulk of that money. I did want to ask, however, about retention bonuses and whether there have been any retention bonuses paid, both in the last 12 months but also in this financial year. And could we just get some clarity on that?
Yeah, happy to take that question, Senator. There were 3 retention bonuses paid in the last 12 months. They were paid to senior people in our network operations. That was just prior to my joining, but I was consulted on that. My view very clearly was that it was appropriate to retain those people. These skills are very, very difficult to find, both in the Australian market and indeed in the international market. They were being coaxed away by a major competitor, and I felt that the damage that their departure would have done would have been significant, and therefore the board approved the retention payment for those 3 individuals. It is not an unusual process to pay retention when people are under threat of moving to a major competitor, but I felt in this particular case it was appropriate to do so, given the skill set, given the complexity and nature of our business and the great difficulty in replacing those individuals in our business.
And what were those retention bonuses worth?
They were, I would have to take on record the actual specific detail, but they were paid over a period of, I believe, 3 years in single lump sums, in addition to the normal base salary that individual has. And I'll provide the specific detail and take it on notice.
And they were within the executive team?
Yes, they were.
3 executives. What were their...
Sorry, perhaps if I can interrupt, Senator. Sorry to interrupt. Just to clarify, of those retention incentives, my understanding is that it was 5 individuals, not 3. Yeah. 1 on the executive team, and that individual was included within our remuneration reporting in the annual report for 2021.
Apologies.
With it being listed as including the retention bonus?
Yes, I believe it was footnoted as a long-term incentive.
So out of the 5, 1 was from the executive team?
That's correct, Senator.
And so the other 4 were, what, senior management?
Yes.
And what roles were they in?
They were in senior operational roles that faced the considerations that Mr Graham referred to earlier.
Mm-hmm. And do you have the figures there in front of you of how much?
I don't have the figures here in front of me.
I'd like you to take that on notice,
We'll take
please.
that question on notice.
Both the total and the breakdown of each of the positions. And so is it right to then conclude that these 5 individuals received the retention bonus over 3 years, plus had a slice of this incentive payment as well, that we've been talking about all morning?
Yeah, so I don't have the details of the specific arrangements, but I can confirm that they would have remained eligible to participate in the incentive plan, and the retention incentive was an additional incentive.
Yes. So a retention bonus, you must have some sense of what the round figure would be per, for people's roles. Are we talking 100,000 per year? Are we talking 50,000 per year? What are we talking?
Well, look, Senator, I don't have the exact figure with me, and I want to make sure that I'm
But are we in the
accurate.
ballpark, or was it even more than that?
So, as Mr Graham mentioned, the incentives were paid over a 3-year period, in effect a 2-year period, a payment that was made at the end of the financial year, a further payment in a year and a further payment in 2 years. The highest of those payments in aggregate over those 3 payments was $500,000. So
And
the
that-
others were less than that. I just
Sure.
don't have the precise
So
figures.
$500,000 retention bonus over 3 years, and that individual retained the ability to also get the incentive bonus as well.
Yes, Senator.
Oh my God, that's a lot of money.
Well, Senator,
That's a lot of money from a public organisation. That's
Well,
extraordinary.
Mr Graham has spoken
Okay,
to the
order. This is-
circumstances.
Talk about out of touch.
This is questions and answers, so do you have a further line of questioning?
I do actually.
Okay, Senator Pratt, just checking, are you done on your side? Okay, well, we'll give you another 5-minute block and see if we can get through.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I look forward to getting those details on notice. Could I ask, out of those 5 individuals, what the gender split was?
I don't have that. I believe they're all male.
I think
They're
that's
all
right.
men.
Yes.
Yeah.
The reason I'm asking this is because it's been put to me that there's been an exodus of senior women from Australia Post over the last 12 months. Is that, you're nodding, Mr Graham, is that fair to say?
No, I'm not in relation to the fact of acknowledging the question, Senator. I
Okay.
don't believe that is
That's
the
fair
case.
enough.
I think Tani can provide some context to the situation, but we have had what we'd regard as our normal levels of turnover. I'm very pleased that in my executive team, my new executive team, that we have a 50-50 split, and that was done on the basis of the skill set of the individuals, but I don't believe we have an out of normal turnover. We encourage and have many programs in place to ensure that we are trying to promote our female talent. We do, in our network operations particularly, have a very traditional male-dominated environment, and we are trying to change that. Indeed, I was out at one of our sites last week in Minchinbury that has a strong coterie of female leaders now, 48, which is great. That same site had 7, 4 or 5 years ago. So we're working through that, but we can do more in terms of making the transport and logistics side of our business more attractive for female leaders.
Out of your executives and senior management, how many women have left the roles over the last 12 months?
My name is Tani Mangos and I'm the Executive General Manager of Community Sustainability and Stakeholder Engagement. Senator, thank you for that question. When you look at across the board in our leadership roles, we've got about 39% of those leadership roles occupied by females. As to the number of women that have departed since, what period are we talking about?
The last 12 months.
The last 12 months. I don't have that information.
Could you take that on
hand.
notice,
I will
please?
certainly take that on notice.
And I'd also like to know in relation to the incentive payments, in addition to, we've heard that the retention payments were given to 5 blokes. Out of the incentive payments, what would the gender split of that has been as well?
Yeah, fine. And that would reflect basically the management makeup. We can provide that
Thank
detail,
you.
Senator.
Thank you, Chair.
Thanks. We have one last question before you go.
Mr Graham, you've only been in the job a short time. You strike me as being on top of everything. You've given us a pretty succinct outline of the organisation and where it's going. You've also said that your salary, your remuneration levels are significantly below other competitors such as NBN. I'm going to ask you a very blunt question, which probably requires a very short answer. In your job, would you say that the focus on the controversial matter of remuneration and incentive at Australia Post makes life difficult for you in attracting the talent that you need in this competitive environment?
I think it's a further complication, Senator, and certainly in discussion with bringing people into the organisation, it creates some difficulties and challenges, but that is the nature of what we are as a GBE. I am passionate about Australia Post, as I know our leadership team is. We have a great purpose, we have a very clear responsibility to the community, but it is a further complication, but one that we all know is there as part of our role as a GBE, and we take that on the run like we take everything else.
I think that's a yes. Is that a yes?
I would say it would qualify as a yes.
Okay.
Thanks, Senator Mirabella. Thank you, Australia Post, for being here today. Thank you very much for taking the questions. We now are going to move to the department